Well, welcome, Wimborne Alliance Church family. It's good to be with you again. Welcome to all those also who are tuning in, who are not part of our regular church family, but maybe you've been given this link by someone who comes to Wimborne, or maybe you just found us online. Just welcome. And our hope is that in the next few minutes you would be encouraged and just directed towards Jesus as we navigate these days. I'm in my study tonight with my wonderful wife Renee, who has been such an encouragement and help to me in these days of this pandemic, the new normal, as it were. And so it's been a little over a month, or about a month, I think, so since this whole thing hit and really turned our world upside down. And so, Renee, what has this past month looked like for you?
Pretty loaded question. It's been great. I have really been embracing it and loving every moment of it. The first week was kind of like a bit of a vacation. Nothing's really kind of sinking in. There's really not some answers to anything yet. So I just kind of bobbed around doing this and that, keeping busy. By the second week, that's when we started to realize that this might be a little bit more long-term, not just a month, but to even think that school was going to be done for the rest of this year was a little mind-boggling for me to kind of grasp, and wasn't too sure, kind of excited about it. I was excited about my alarm not going off at 6:30 in the morning anymore.
You are not a morning people.
I can do mornings. I just don't do them the bestest. I am a night owl by nature. And so my natural sleep cycle is best from like midnight to 8. That's when it's, so, not getting up at 6:30 has been pretty sweet. So the second week it was trying to understand what this new normal was going to look like. I now had 6-ish plus hours, actually more like 16 hours in a day, because everything was canceled. School was canceled. All our activities are canceled. So I now had, if I'm sleeping 8 hours, which I try to achieve, 16 hours is a lot of hours in a day to play around with. And so I wanted to give that time some good substance and some good purpose.
So you were saying you want to be able to look back on this time down the road and say that it was good. It was It was whatever happened, that you used it well, and it wasn't wasted time.
I really wanted to embrace it and to really enjoy the moment. This has been one of the things that I've been focusing on lately, is not always looking ahead and anticipating what was ahead, but just to embrace today, embrace what God has for me today, the activities, and to just really enjoy it.
Okay. So how's that working? How are you filling these 16 hours a day that were filled out before, but now they're not so much?
Remember about 12 years ago, back in Lamont, we were very busy people, and we experienced a bit of a burnout time. If we could fit something else into a minute, we would, and they were good things and they were fun things for the most part. But it became a little bit chaotic. It was physically, mentally, and emotionally very draining. There was no balance. And so at that time, we had a reset time, which is really not that much different than what we are experiencing now. Everything's been canceled. It's much quieter. There's nothing on my calendar except the kids' birthdays this month, and so everything has been wiped out, and it has allowed us to get a clear perspective in our minds about what's truly important in our lives. And we did that up in Lamont.
Yeah, that was kind of a forced intervention, I would say, by Pastor Ron.
Yeah.
Where he he basically sat you down and
Yeah,
tuned you in,
he did.
more or less.
Yes. So this has been forced upon us as well. But we've been there before, and we have seen the benefit of that. During that time, our family developed a new motto. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, I think it was posted, if I remember correctly. Probably,
yes.
Probably on the fridge.
Yeah,
and
great big
and on the board.
on the board. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like work, rest, and play.
A balance of work, rest, and play.
Yeah.
And the second week into this pandemic, I was reminded of that. And that has been a really great reminder for me, is to sit down and say, okay, what's that balance of work, rest, and play gonna look like? And so I sat down with a pen and a piece of paper, and I asked God.
You didn't use your new phone
No.
to make a list?
No.
Pen and paper.
Yeah,
What is
the
this?
old-fashioned thing.
Okay. Well,
And
God still uses those.
these were some of the primary principles that God gave me in that moment. And for the past 3 weeks, I've been following them pretty closely. First, it was make time with Him. Get at least 8 hours of sleep every night. Talk to one family member every day. Talk to another person on the phone every day. Pick a project that needs to be done in the house every day. That's kind of the work side of things. And to have at least 1 hour of leisure time doing something that I love. Now, those were some very loose guidelines. Lots of flexibility in there when you've got 16 hours a day to kind of play around with that. I could add more to each of those if I wanted to. Lots of room to do other things too. But it was a good place to start that balance of work, rest, and play mentality.
Yeah. Okay. So, how's that working out? How are you finding that?
Awesome, actually. Making time with God to continue to transform my mind with His truth has been very important to me in dealing with fear, anxiety, and worry. And one of the avenues He has used to help me do that is time in His Word. What does His Word say about worry and fear and provisions? Another avenue is important to me is filling my mind with good songs. And so I think it was,
End of week one.
End of week one.
Probably.
End of week one. I was calling TELUS with our TELUS hub to up the data.
Along with everyone else.
Yes.
Yes.
On the phone for, I think it was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But that's okay. They doubled our data.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost us anything. So that was a really nice gift. It was a really nice gift that God gave us. And I've been streaming Christian songs some of the days, just as I'm doing some of my work projects around the house. Part of that transforming my mind with good things is filling them with songs that bring encouragement and hope and fun and excitement and joy and answers and comfort and peace. Like, it just goes on and on and on. So that's been a really good resource as well.
What else have you been doing?
Okay, believe it or not, I also stopped listening to the news and the pandemic stuff. There's so much floating around out there, and some of it's not even true, and all it did was just create worry and anxiety within me. And it's like, I don't need this. I figured that if there was something I needed to know, there would be somebody who would tell me.
So you just pushed mute on all the noise.
Yes.
Because
it was never ending, and it just wasn't good. Talking on the phone with somebody is very good for me mentally.
Yeah.
You can text. Yes. But there's something about hearing someone's voice.
Yeah.
There is something about hearing their words. There's something about hearing the tone in how they say something. There's something about hearing their excitement.
Yeah.
Or their worry, or hearing them laugh. There's just something about that. And I'm concerned that with all the texting that we do and the convenience that is, we've lost that.
Yeah, there's some things that are face-to-face things. And with the Samsung S10.
I know. It didn't take me very long.
Getting the video thing
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah. Last Sunday, we were missing the kids.
yeah.
And
I mean, it's Easter Sunday.
yeah, somehow I figured it out on my phone, and we started calling everybody, and everyone's faces started popping up, and everyone started chatting, and it was chaotic like it normally is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was wonderful.
We had a phone full instead of a house full.
Yes, and it was really, really good.
Yeah.
To do that.
Okay, so then projects.
Projects. I have to show this to you. So I sat down, and here's my list of things. Things that have been irritating me for a very long time.
Am I on that list?
You are not on the list.
Praise the Lord.
But you are a project.
You can edit that out.
That's staying in. I'm not a natural house cleaner. I'm a tidier. I can keep things functioning, but you know those deep closets. I couldn't even remember where my favorite hiding spots for things were anymore.
I don't know if that has to do with like the tidying. Anyway, that's a separate.
And so I actually sat down and I just made a list. I just brainstormed for 10 minutes of anything that kind of came to mind, and I just wrote them down. Mm-hmm. And I said I started out setting an hour a day to do a project, mm-hmm. and that was wiped right out the very first day because it took me 2.5 hours to do one. Mm-hmm. But I really, really enjoyed it. And you know, I asked God, because it doesn't, it's not something I naturally gravitate. Yeah. Did you know that there's people who really do enjoy house cleaning?
I've heard of it. Not
yeah,
experienced it myself.
No, not me either.
Apparently a thing.
But it was, I actually asked them to give me a desire, mm-hmm. To do the things that needed to be done, but not just a desire, but also a joy. Yeah. And I can honestly say I really have enjoyed going through this list and doing something. And as you can tell, I got more crossed off than not, so I'm actually winning.
You're making headway.
I am. So that's cool. That's been really good. In the process of going through tubs and stuff and closets, I found quite a bit of yarn.
Who knew?
I did. I just kind of forgot about it. So the first week I made myself a blanket, and then I started delving in and making some baby blankets because I thought that might be good to store up on. Because in 9 months or so you might have a baby boom or something.
You never know.
And so that's part of my leisure time. If I wanted to sit and watch a movie, which has been pretty much every night, I'll sit there and I'll just knit away. And I've done quite a few of those in the last couple mm-hmm. of weeks, so that's been really good.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I found one of the things that's been really bothering me is sorting through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of our kids. And with 6 kids, you can understand that would be quite the thing. It took me 5 days. Yeah. 5 days. But you know what? It was an amazing walk down memory lane for me.
Yeah, we saw some of those and realized that we did a lot of stuff.
We did.
We did as a family, and it was pretty cool to see some of those pictures and just remember those things.
Just to see everyday life, mm-hmm. not that we did a bunch of
just
holidays and stuff. It was just everyday life.
Yeah.
The kids playing in my garden and out in the yard and those type of things, and so that's been a lot of fun
with paint and. Things.
Working as I've been crossing things off this list, I realized also how beneficial that has been. Right. Because even before the pandemic, I would mentally, these things would be floating around in the back of my head, and you just don't realize how much stress that creates for you mentally. Mm-hmm. And as you're crossing some of these off, there's that satisfaction of, yes, a job well done, and it's done, but I'm not even thinking about it anymore.
Yeah, clears up space.
It does. Yeah. And I think part of this reset for this pandemic, it's important, I think, to really embrace that if you can. To just have that reset, to declutter our minds. We don't realize just how cluttered it really is until we do. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, I've told you this just about every day probably, is that I just appreciate your attitude and practice of encouraging. You're such an encouragement to me, and part of me wonders, how do you do that?
By nature, would you say I am, see the glass half full kind of gal?
Probably see the glass mostly full.
Part of my nature is to find what kind of good can come out of circumstances. And I know that some people don't believe or find it hard to believe, but I truly believe that God has something for me to learn in every circumstance that he brings across my way. And this pandemic is no different. Mm-hmm. When I'm sitting down and I was evaluating this balance of work, rest, and play, it's like, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to see here? What is it that you want me to embrace? What is it that you want me to learn? If I want to find good in something, I will find good in something. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to find good in something, you're not going to find it.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is a perspective. It is an attitude. It is...
it's a choice.
It's a choice.
To see what God is going to teach us, and knowing that he's going to work all things for good.
Yeah.
Because he loves us and we love him. We belong to him. So part of it's a choice, part of it's temperament, but part of it's a lot of it has to do with choice, which is good. You talked about the reset button, just reminding us of what really matters, what in life. So how's that been?
Well, I remember up in Lamont when we reset our priorities at that time, and our pastor is so wise. Mm-hmm. He looked at us and he said, I want you to wipe everything off your calendar. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize how much you do until mentally you catch yourself going, oh, I don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't have to do that. And the flip side of that, he said, in about 3 months, as you have rested up and are feeling better, you're gonna start missing something.
Pastor Ron's a very wise man.
He is a wise man.
He is.
And he was right. And he says those things that you are really missing are your true passions. He said there's much that you can do. There's much that you love to do. But what are your true passions? And I think what has happened is, even where we are today in society, we have lost sight of what our true passions are. And it is filled with a bunch of things. A bunch of stuff.
Activities.
And
not that they're bad.
They're not bad.
But we're just busy.
But when you're bobbing around doing all of these things, are you really enjoying it, or are you just kind of going through the motions?
Yeah. What you had mentioned something about just having some unstimulated time.
Having some of that unstimulated time might look like just shutting your phone off and not hearing it going ding, ding, ding. Now that I've got one that actually dings.
Now that you have a dingy smartphone.
And so just shutting it off. Maybe the TV's off. Maybe you've needed some time just to reset with your kids. Maybe time to reset with your spouse. Maybe some time just to reset with God. Just being silent and allowing him to just speak to you, that you can hear his voice, and just really soak in what it is that he's wanting you to grasp in this time. I'm finding that this time has been just a gift to me. And that's one of the things that I wanted to embrace every day, is that it's a gift to me. Not what's the word that you would use if you were looking at each day with regret?
Yeah, a burden.
A burden,
like
an inconvenience. For me, it's been a gift, and I've been embracing every day as a gift.
Yeah, you have. That for sure. Because I think sometimes we be busy, and that just, it kind of just masks a bunch of stuff. We don't want to deal with some things. Perhaps we don't want to get close to God, or we don't want to get close in relationship, and we just be busy, and we have stuff going on, we're stimulated externally,
Yeah.
where we need to shut that off so we can be stimulated internally.
Yeah.
With thoughts and with desires, where we can be responsive to God through His Word, through His Spirit, and we have that internal stimulation.
Yeah.
Which is very different than external stimulation.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of what you're. How would you encourage people to really embrace that, turning down the external stimulation so that we can be responsive to God?
I think it's just being very conscious of it. I'm just being honest with myself. When I have all of these things going on, I'm just drowning out God's voice. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that there's times when I'm just running from stuff that He wants to bring to my attention. Mm-hmm. And so I had to really sit down and just purposely say, God, what is it that you want me to do today? Who is it that you want me to talk to today? What is it that you want me to listen to today? What is it that you want me to read today? Those are very tangible questions to ask. And you know what? He's faithful every time.
Yeah, and lots of times it's right there.
Yeah.
And when we establish good rhythms, mm-hmm. If we're reading our Bible every day, because we know that that's one of the ways God speaks to us, we're in a rhythm of that. It's a discipline. It's because we want to.
Yeah.
We don't have to decide whether we're going to do that or not.
Yeah.
It's already there. So we do it, and it's like faith. And we've talked about that, is as we step out and do it, God
He meets us.
Always meets us. But He doesn't give us the thing before we move. So we step out in faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what you're saying. You have a purpose: work, rest, and play.
Yeah.
We have a plan. Turn down the stimulation, the external stimulation. We're going to find a quiet spot. We're going to open our Bible. We're going to read. We're going to pray. We're going to have a list. We're going to ask God, who do you want me to contact today? All these things.
Yeah.
So we do those things in obedience, in faith.
Yeah.
And He always answers.
He does. He always meets me.
And He brings people to mind. He opens His Scripture to us, and so He's been really, really faithful.